I think there's a tendency when you're coming out of school and you want to be an entrepreneur that you're going to make 100K, 150K off the bat. And it's like this beautiful sunset over there. But the journey is hard. There's pain and there's ups and downs. I like to emphasize that you want to go into an industry or in a niche that you enjoy.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as a founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we have another great guest on the podcast, Judy Lin. And Judy started out going to high school at an all-girls school and then went to college in San Francisco and getting a degree with a writing emphasis. Worked for internet companies doing digital marketing and worked for a few different businesses as their head of marketing. And I think worked at a few different businesses. I think it was around 10 businesses over a period of time. Left a few, got let go of a few, and all the fun things that between going through different businesses before deciding to go do her own thing, started her own firm doing digital marketing, and then or transitioning, doing kind of the full spectrum, pivoted between a few different industries, and is currently focusing on some corporate clients. So with that much as introduction, welcome on the podcast, Judy.
Thank you, Devin. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So excited to have a good conversation. So I just took a much longer journey and condensed it into the 30-second version, but let's unpack that a bit. So tell us a little bit about how you journey got started with the all-girls high school.
Sure. So I went to an all-girls Catholic high school in Cincinnati, Ohio. And then I went to University of San Francisco and majored in English with a writing emphasis. And during that time, I worked at a few companies afterwards, and they were more focused on marketing. So surprisingly, even though I had an English major with a writing emphasis, my career actually started in corporate marketing and then eventually migrated into digital. So probably in my 20s, I worked for architectural engineering firms. And I did a lot of proposal writing, a lot of corporate marketing. I worked for an international school. I've worked for hotels. And then eventually I started my path in digital marketing by working for.
And just jumping in really quick, just because you glossed over a good period of time of your journey. So, you started out doing, backing up a bit, went to college, got the writing emphasis, come out and, even with the writing emphasis, end up going into digital marketing and kind of having more of a marketing emphasis within the business. So you mentioned it was the first few businesses you worked with, or the business you worked out of school in the architectural, is that the architectural firm, or kind of what was that initial entrance?
Yeah, I worked for a couple architectural engineering firms. So I was a proposal writer, and I was also in corporate marketing. I was up in San Francisco for 7 years. Then I headed south into Los Angeles and worked for an engineering firm. And again, did more marketing, corporate marketing, and proposal writing. And
then just before you come off of that one, just more curiosity. So what, jumping between jobs or, moving between jobs usually has multiple different motivations. Anything from, hey, it's a better opportunity. I hate my boss. I can make more money. I don't like the location. I don't get along well with others. And there are great reasons why, you don't want to. So what was the kind of the motivation as you're saying, hey, I'm moving between the different jobs, starting in San Francisco and then moved to Los Angeles? Kind of what was the genesis for the change?
Yeah. So, honestly, it wasn't even career driven. It was more that I was interested in living in other places besides San Francisco. So, I had gone to college there. I had a tennis scholarship there, and I taught tennis there also in San Francisco for some time, and as well as doing marketing work. And I just wanted a change. So I went down to Los Angeles and lived in Santa Monica and Venice. And it was kind of a chance for me to explore like what my likes are in writing and marketing and PR. I mean, I was still very young, you know, in my early 20s. So, you know, I was in the exploration stage at the time. And I just happened to land these marketing jobs at architectural firms. But I didn't want to stay in that industry, to be quite honest. It was a little too rigid for me, a little dry, and I was looking for more creativity, more for like creative agencies and a little more artistic on that front. So I worked a few years in LA, and then eventually I went down to Orange County, and I worked for a hotel, a pretty large corporate hotel company that owned like 9 hotels. And I was hired as digital marketing director there. And so my job was to do SEO, paid search, content marketing, the whole gamut of digital. And again, you know, I think for a lot of years, I was just exploring my likes, my dislikes, you know, what kind of industries were going to give me a little more push and a little more promotion, I would say, you know. And I think it was just kind of a natural migration that I moved away from corporate companies and started going to the internet industry. And so my first break with the hotel allowed me on this path for digital. And then I got another job working in the internet industry for family websites and some other mostly life and health industries that was in the internet industry as well. And I was
Was
able
that
to,
just as a quick question? So you worked with the hotel and you kind of had, hey, you had an opportunity to get into the digital side of things. It sounds like you liked it and enjoyed it. Now, sounds like between that or from the hotel, you switched to a different job, or you went to and worked for a different industry. Is that right?
I just went into a different job that was more geared towards internet industry rather than hotels or architectural. You know, I wanted to be more on the pioneering front, and that was pretty much my step into the digital space. So that really started taking off for like 10 years. And then I got laid off a couple times, and it wasn't because of my performance. I had one of the highest performance reviews. They had budget problems, and I think one of them actually went under, to be honest. So, you know, I think I just got tired of this cycle of getting these jobs, doing well, but it wasn't really moving the needle for my career. And so I started my own digital marketing agency. I started as a freelancer, as a one-person show. And as time went on with one account, my big one account became my biggest account. Then I started adding more people into my agency with other SEO analysts, graphic designers, web designers, writers.
Now, one or maybe just one
And
quick
it
question.
just organically grew.
Yeah, and
Sure.
one
Well,
question
sorry, go
kind of,
ahead.
no, you're good. And as you were getting into this, or you're saying, okay, because it sounded like, and putting words in your mouth, but making sure that I get them right,
Sure.
is that you started almost, so you got into digital marketing, you started with the hotel, you moved over to a job that had a bit more of that emphasis and provided a bit more of that opportunity for growth. Now, as you decided, okay, I want to maybe do my own thing or get into that a bit more, what was did you start it out as a, hey, I'm going to dive in full time and do this all, out of the gate, and I'm just going to start my own thing? Or was it more of a side hustle? So you're working a full-time job for someone else and trying to also build up the business so you can make that leap, or kind of how did that balance out?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was just at the time working full time. I had no intention of starting anything new. It was because of the after effect of, being laid off a few times. I was thinking, I really don't want to keep going through the cycle of, looking for work and then getting laid off, even though I had great performance. It just didn't make sense. So, I decided that maybe the smarter thing to do was just go off on my own and start, finding my own accounts. And, it wasn't like I had the attention to say, oh, I'm going to grow this large digital marketing company, or I had no intention of really going for any of that. It just, all of it happened very naturally, and I was just following my path and my own, my own bliss, so to speak. And things started lining up, and I started with one small account, and that account started attracting other medical doctor accounts, and it just blossomed on its own. So yeah.
No, and that makes sense. And one question I had, so as you're getting your own, getting your own firm, saying, okay, I want to do my own thing, getting it up and running. Was it one where as you got it started, as you're going, that it just took off and it was a great experience and you had lots of clients rain from the sky and everything was perfect? Or is it one where it took a bit of time, or kind of how did you, as you're starting to start your own digital agency, how did that go in the early stage?
So it was a little difficult in the beginning. I mean, in the very, very beginning, when I was a one-person show, I had only one account. I mean, I was the one that had to go pitch the account, go sell pretty much, go to the meetings, land the deal, close it, and provide the services. So, at the time, it wasn't like I was making that much. And, there were intervals where I had to go find other jobs to supplement that. But I went through, a few years where I really had to supplement with other jobs, part-time jobs. And then as my own business started growing and I was building more clout, I guess, for myself and my team, that's when things started to happen, where larger accounts, bigger clients, and I was able to give a lot more than the segmented services that I had, even with just a couple people. Now I'm pretty much full gamut of digital marketing. Whereas before, I felt like I could only do writing and copywriting and a little SEO, but I couldn't do the graphics. I couldn't do the web design. I couldn't code because I didn't have those roles. So what I did was hired people that came in to fulfill those roles. So that's how it happened. I mean, a lot of it, to be honest, just, it wasn't like I came up with a strategic plan and said, I'm going to do this, do this, do this. It was more of like, it came out of need. It was like immediate need, that during that account, I needed that web designer. I needed that videographer. So I had to quickly pivot and I had to quickly adjust to the climate of the business, and whatever the client needed. If I couldn't do it, I had to quickly find a partner or if I hired someone in to come in to fulfill that role. So that's an essence of how it started. And it's been 20 years, Devin. So, you're taking me back to like times when I had just first started. And, it hasn't been an easy course. I think as an entrepreneur, you have to really learn to adapt to change and take risks, a lot of high risk. And, a lot, it depends on your personality. Some people like that stable paycheck every, 2 weeks. But I'm not really that kind of person, obviously. So, you know, I think being an entrepreneur is not really for everyone. It's definitely a special breed. There's obviously high rewards, high risks, but at the same time, you control your schedule, you control your pay, you can control how much income you want to generate. I mean, it's all your work and your effort. Whereas, I feel like as, when I was a younger person working for other companies, I think it was a good educational process for me to build my skills of SEO, paid search, content marketing, copywriting, all of it. And I did use a lot of that skill set into my business. And I took the best parts of it and applied it to clients that I felt were going to support them and help them become more successful.
No, I think that definitely makes sense. And, it's always interesting to take a bit of a stroll back down memory lane as to how things occurred and kind of, how you got to where you're at today. So that was definitely a helpful walkthrough. And so now as we kind of caught up a bit to where you're at today, if you're to kind of look now at the next 6 to 12 months, kind of looking out a bit into the future as to where you're headed, what are the next thing or next things on the horizon, kind of where do you see the next 6 to 12 months headed for you?
Yeah, so I'm still a part of everyday marketing operations, and I'm trying to get out of that. So, technically, I'm the CEO, president, but at the same time, clients want to talk to you. I have a team of 10 people. It's pretty much specified roles already. I have everyone filled in each role that's necessary. It's just I'm having a hard time finding time to do business development, because it's not like my team is generating. I don't really have a dedicated salesperson doing that. So I'm the one that's actually generating the accounts and acting as that BD person right now. But yeah, my goal is to definitely get out of everyday marketing operations as much as I can and just focus on landing accounts and developing relationships with clients, and also expand to other industries besides, healthcare and contact centers. So, we pretty much could service any brand as long as we understand who they are and what they're after and what their services are. We can pretty much service any brand.
I think that and it is always a bit hard when you're running the business. You end up wearing multiple different hats, and
Yes.
and to be able to take a step back and say, one, where do I add the most value, or where am I able to drive the business forward the most, and then how do I free up that time to do it? And it's always a balance, because inevitably you're going to get pulled into the direction of, hey, I want to I need to get all these things done, and who's going to fill in the gaps. And yet, if I do all these things, and some of the things of marketing and or landing those accounts and working with the new clients and getting them on board, and that is sometimes where it becomes difficult. So definitely makes sense, and it sounds like a fun next part of your journey to figure out. Well, with that, as we now we wrap up your journey, and we get to kind of where you're at to the present day, and even looking a bit into the future. Always a great time to ask the two questions I always ask at the end of each journey. So the first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what'd you learn from it?
My worst business decision. Wow. I think one of them is, you definitely don't want to just take upon anyone, meaning that, I had people approach me where I sensed this person was going to be difficult to work with. And I took it anyway because I was at the beginning of my career. So I was looking to just work and make money. I wasn't as selective with the clients that I was working with. Now, fast forward 20 years, I'm in a different position now where I can choose. And what I learned from it is, not everything is about money. It's not always about money. It's about the relationships that you have with clients. It's about what you're doing for the client and how you can be of service. That's the most important. I think if you do an excellent job servicing your client in every realm, the money comes. It comes naturally. So, my biggest business mistake is, be selective. Don't just take anyone just because they're throwing money at you.
No, and I think that there's a lot of truth, and I think that
they could cause you. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that, if you just take upon anyone, you got to remember there's only so much time in the day, right? Either you service the VIP clients that you're yielding high money, or you're serving someone that's really high stress with low budget. It makes no sense.
No, and I couldn't agree more. And I think that, what's interesting is, the clients that are the ones that are the highest maintenance, and the ones you worked or like to work with the least, are always the ones that cost you the most money, or you make the least money off of. And
Right.
Just that interesting correlation of, focusing on the clients that, one, you like to work with, two, that are good to work with, and three, that aren't just forever, bringing up issues and wanting changes and wanting modifications and answering every question. It's just ones that you always are, I always find myself, there's a select few. Most of the clients I love working with. We have some great
Right.
clients, but there's always those few clients you just say, this is going to be another headache. They're going to want to spend 30 minutes on a 5-minute question. They're not going to want to, pay any more for it. And it's just going to be one where you just say, those aren't the clients they want to work with. And to the degree you're able to, and it makes sense with them, sometimes it happens with all clients, but if they're those consistently that client that you hate taking the call from, I think it's always better to say, okay,
Right.
How do I adjust the business such that I'm no longer having to deal with those clients, or I'm able to, I always say I'm going to fire the clients, and I've only fired a couple of clients, I think, throughout, several years, but it's
Right.
those clients who saying they're just not worth it. They're too much of a headache, and I'd rather just, focus on the thing, or the clients that are the ones that are the fun ones to work with. So I think that's a great takeaway. Second question I always ask is, if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what'd be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
you have to have a lot of stamina and an adaptable mindset. I mean, I think if you want to be an entrepreneur and you're starting business, you got to get your mindset right first, because your mindset is going to translate into everything you do in business. Because it's very easy for people to give up where they don't see any result or anything manifesting, and they might want to give up in the middle of, like, let's say 1 year, so to speak. Well, not everything is going to be shiny and golden. I think I just did a speaking engagement at USC for these young entrepreneurs. And, I think there's a tendency when you're coming out of school and you want to be an entrepreneur that you're going to make 100K, 150K off the bat. And it's like this beautiful sunset over there. But the journey is hard. There's pain and there's ups and downs. I like to emphasize that you want to go into an industry or in a niche that you enjoy. Don't go into an area. Let's say if you like, skateboarding or extreme sports and you enjoy that niche, you will do extremely well because it doesn't feel like work. But if you're taking an account strictly for money and it's an unpleasant environment or unpleasant people to work with, it's not going to last. So, as an entrepreneur, you got to look at the life of the accounts. It's much easier to sustain and have client retention than constantly go out and hustle for more new accounts. If you have a handful of accounts that, let's say, last between 6 to 8 years, you're doing great. You don't have to hustle these one or twosies for every few months. It's about the relationship building and servicing the client and helping them become successful and educating, guiding them, and being of service to them. So, having that correct mindset of approaching your client is everything.
Oh, I think that's definitely a great takeaway and a great thing to note as you're getting started. So, well, as we wrap up the podcast, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, or find out more?
Sure. So I'm on LinkedIn, and it's just Judy Lin under Carlsbad, California. And then my website URL is digitalmarketingdoctor.us.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, connect with you, and find out more and support a great business. And thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you, the listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveguest.com and apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click subscribe, share, leave us a review, because we want to make sure that everyone finds out about all of these awesome episodes and journeys. Last but not least, if you ever need help with your patents, your trademarks, or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Judy, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks so much, Devin. Thanks for having me.